You have been eating less. You have been exercising more. The weight is coming off. Your face looks thinner. Your arms are getting smaller. Your clothes fit better in some places. But then you look down at your belly and it looks almost exactly the same as before. Sound familiar? Belly fat seems to play by completely different rules. No matter what you do, no matter how disciplined you are, it refuses to budge. And if you have ever wondered why this happens, you are definitely not alone. Millions of people around the world experience this exact frustration every single day. But here is the thing most people do not realize. Your belly fat is not stubborn because you lack willpower or discipline. It is stubborn because your body was literally designed that way. There are real, measurable biological reasons why fat around your midsection behaves so differently from fat everywhere else on your body. Today, we are going to explore the science behind belly fat. We will look at exactly why it forms in the first place, why it is so incredibly hard to lose, and how fasting might be one of the most effective tools available to finally get rid of it. Before we continue, I want to be clear that this is educational content, not medical advice. If you are considering any type of fasting regimen, please consult with your healthcare provider first. Everyone's body is different, and what works for one person may not be appropriate for another. Now let us start with understanding what belly fat actually is. When you pinch the soft layer of fat around your stomach, that is what we call subcutaneous belly fat. The word subcutaneous simply means under the skin. This fat sits in the layer between your skin and your abdominal muscles. It is the fat you can grab with your hand. This is different from visceral fat, which is another type of fat that lies much deeper inside your abdomen. Visceral fat surrounds and cushions your internal organs like your liver, intestines, stomach, and kidneys. You cannot pinch visceral fat because it is too deep inside your body. Both types of fat respond to fasting, but they respond in different ways. We have already covered visceral fat in detail in a previous video on this channel. Today, we are focusing specifically on that visible belly fat that you can see and feel, the kind that hangs over your waistband, the kind that shows through your shirt, the kind that seems to refuse to disappear no matter what you try. So the first question we need to answer is this: why does fat accumulate around your belly in the first place? Every single time you eat, especially when you eat foods containing sugar or starch, your body releases a hormone called insulin. Insulin is produced by your pancreas, and it serves as a signal telling your body what to do with the energy from your food. When insulin levels are high, your body receives a clear message to go into storage mode. It takes the excess energy from whatever you just ate and stores it as fat for later use. Here is the critical part that most people do not know. Your abdominal area has significantly more insulin receptors than many other parts of your body. Think of receptors as receiving stations that pick up hormonal signals. Because your belly has more of these receiving stations for insulin, it is particularly responsive to insulin's storage message. When insulin tells your body to store fat, your belly is often the first place to receive that signal and the most eager to act on it. But there is another factor that makes belly fat accumulation even worse. When you are under stress, whether it is work pressure, relationship problems, financial worries, or just the chaos of modern life, your body releases a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, and it has many functions. One of those functions is promoting fat storage, and cortisol seems to have a particular preference for storing fat around your midsection. This is why people who experience chronic ongoing stress often notice their belly growing larger, even when their eating habits have not changed significantly. The stress itself is contributing to fat accumulation through this cortisol pathway. So we have insulin pushing fat into storage, and we have cortisol making sure that a significant portion of that fat ends up specifically around your belly. But there is one more factor that makes all of this even more challenging as time goes on, and that factor is age. Starting around age 30, your body begins a gradual process of losing muscle mass. This happens to everyone unless they actively work against it through resistance exercise. If you are not regularly challenging your muscles, you can lose somewhere between 1 and 2% of your total muscle mass every single year. Why does this matter for belly fat? Because muscle tissue is metabolically active. Your muscles burn calories around the clock even when you are sitting still or sleeping. Less muscle mass means a slower metabolism, which means your body burns fewer total calories each day. Those unburned calories have to go somewhere, and they often end up stored as fat. At the same time that you are losing muscle, your hormones are also shifting. In men, testosterone levels begin a gradual decline starting in the 30s. In women, estrogen levels go through significant changes, especially during and after menopause. These hormonal shifts fundamentally affect where your body prefers to store fat. Instead of distributing fat relatively evenly across your body, it starts concentrating more and more around your abdomen. This is not something you are doing wrong. This is simply how human biology works. But understanding these mechanisms helps you see clearly why belly fat tends to become more common and more stubborn as we move through life. Now we arrive at the central question. Why is belly fat so incredibly, frustratingly difficult to lose? Every fat cell in your body has two distinct types of receptors sitting on its surface. You can think of receptors as switches that control what the fat cell does. The first type is called beta receptors. When beta receptors get activated by certain hormones, they send a signal telling the fat cell to release its stored fat into the bloodstream so it can be burned for energy. The second type is called alpha 2 receptors. These work in the opposite direction. When alpha 2 receptors get activated, they send a signal telling the fat cell to hold tight, to keep its stored fat locked away, and to resist any attempts to release it. Here is the critical difference. The fat cells in your abdominal area have a much higher proportion of alpha 2 receptors compared to fat cells in your arms, your face, your chest, or other areas. Research has shown that belly fat can have anywhere from 4 to 9 times more alpha 2 receptors than fat in other regions. What does this mean when you are actually trying to lose weight? When you exercise or reduce your calorie intake, your body releases hormones like adrenaline and noradrenaline that are designed to mobilize fat from storage. These hormones travel through your bloodstream and reach fat cells throughout your entire body. When they reach areas with lots of beta receptors, like your face or your arms, the fat cells respond quickly and enthusiastically, releasing their stored fat. But when these same hormones reach your belly fat, they encounter a much stronger resistance signal from all those alpha 2 receptors. The stop signal in your belly is simply louder and stronger than the go signal. There is yet another challenge. Blood flow to belly fat tends to be lower than blood flow to fat deposits in other areas. This means the fat-burning hormones have a harder time even physically reaching your belly fat cells in sufficient quantities. Why would your body be designed this way? It comes down to survival. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors lived where food availability was unpredictable. There would be periods of plenty followed by periods of severe scarcity. The humans who survived were those whose bodies were most efficient at storing and protecting energy reserves. Belly fat served as the ultimate emergency reserve. It was the last line of defense that could keep a person alive during an extended famine. Our ancestors' bodies evolved sophisticated mechanisms to protect this crucial reserve. Those with the best fat protection mechanisms survived and passed on their genes. The problem is that we inherited this ancient survival programming, but we now live in a completely different world. Food is abundant and available around the clock. There are no famines to survive, but our bodies do not know that. They are still running the same protective software. So how does fasting help us overcome these biological barriers? When you fast, a remarkable cascade of hormonal changes begins unfolding in your body. These changes are what make fasting fundamentally different from simply eating fewer calories. Let me walk you through exactly what happens at different stages. During the first 12 hours after your last meal, your body is primarily still running on glucose from the food you ate. Insulin levels begin dropping gradually, but nothing dramatic is happening yet with your fat stores. Between 12 and 18 hours of fasting, things start to genuinely shift. Your glucose reserves are running low, and your body transitions more heavily toward burning fat for energy. Insulin levels drop significantly. Simultaneously, your body starts ramping up production of growth hormone. This hormone promotes the breakdown of fat while protecting your muscle tissue from being used for energy. This is why proper fasting does not cause the muscle loss that many people fear. Between 18 and 24 hours of fasting, the hormonal changes become even more pronounced. Insulin has dropped to very low levels, far lower than you would ever achieve just by eating less food. Growth hormone can surge to as much as 5 times its normal level. Your body also increases its release of norepinephrine, a hormone that directly activates fat cells and tells them to release their stored contents. Here is why this matters specifically for your stubborn belly fat. Remember those alpha 2 receptors that act like brakes on fat release? When insulin remains low for an extended continuous period, and when growth hormone and norepinephrine levels are simultaneously elevated, this hormonal combination begins to override the alpha 2 blockade. The stop signal gradually weakens, and belly fat that has been stubbornly resistant finally begins to let go. Beyond 24 hours of fasting, these beneficial effects continue building. A process called autophagy becomes increasingly active. Autophagy is your body's cellular housekeeping system, where damaged components get broken down and recycled. Your body is now operating fully in fat-burning mode, drawing energy from fat stores throughout your body, including those stubborn deposits around your midsection. A study published in 2023 directly compared intermittent fasting against traditional calorie restriction. Both groups consumed exactly the same total number of calories. The only difference was the eating pattern. The results were striking. The intermittent fasting group lost 33% of their visceral fat, while the calorie restriction group lost only 14%. Same total calories, dramatically different outcomes. This suggests that fasting creates specific hormonal conditions that simple calorie cutting cannot replicate. I want to be direct about something important. Extended fasting beyond 24 hours is not appropriate for everyone. If you experience severe dizziness that does not pass quickly, if your heart starts pounding or racing, if you feel confused or have difficulty thinking, these are signs to stop your fast immediately and consult with a healthcare professional. Fasting should feel challenging, but it should not feel dangerous. In 2021, researchers at the University of Sydney conducted one of the most detailed studies on what happens to fat tissue during fasting. They analyzed over 8,500 different proteins in fat tissue. What they discovered surprised the scientific community. Belly fat does not simply sit there passively resisting weight loss. It actively adapts and fights back. When fat tissue around the abdomen senses that the body is fasting, it shifts into what the researchers called preservation mode. In this mode, belly fat actually increases its capacity to store energy while decreasing its willingness to release stored fat. This explains why many people notice their belly fat shrinking more slowly than fat in other areas during early stages of fasting. But here is the encouraging news. This preservation mode has limits. It cannot hold out indefinitely. The researchers noted that with sufficient fasting duration and consistent practice over time, the body eventually overcomes this resistance. The belly fat cannot maintain its defense forever. Now, let us discuss something equally important. What you eat during your eating windows matters enormously. Fasting creates the hormonal conditions for fat loss, but your food choices determine whether you actually take full advantage of those conditions. Protein needs to be your absolute top priority. Protein helps preserve your muscle mass even as you are losing weight. It creates a strong sensation of fullness that makes fasting periods much easier to handle. A reasonable target is approximately 1.6 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight each day. If you weigh 70 kilograms, that translates to roughly 110 to 140 grams of protein daily. Good protein sources include chicken breast, fish eggs, tofu, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, and legumes like beans, lentils, and chickpeas. Beyond protein, focus on choosing minimally processed whole foods. Foods in their natural state typically have lower calorie density. This means you can eat a satisfying volume while consuming fewer total calories. Vegetables, fruits, and whole grains like brown rice, quinoa, and oats are excellent choices. If you are following a 16 to 8 fasting schedule, where you fast for 16 hours and eat within an 8-hour window, think carefully about structuring your meals. Your first meal should lead with protein and include generous portions of vegetables. Your second meal can be more balanced, incorporating protein along with complex carbohydrates from whole grain sources and moderate amounts of healthy fats. If you are practicing OMAD, meaning one meal a day, that single daily meal carries even more importance. Protein remains the top priority. Build your plate around a generous protein source first. Add a large serving of vegetables for vitamins, minerals, and fiber. Round out the meal with some complex carbohydrates and healthy fats. Do not be afraid to eat until you feel satisfied. The key is choosing high-quality, nutrient-dense foods. What should you avoid? Highly processed foods, beverages containing added sugars and refined starches like white bread, white pasta, and pastries. These foods cause rapid spikes in your insulin levels. And as we have discussed, elevated insulin directly counteracts the fat-burning state you are working to achieve through fasting. Here is what I want you to take away from everything we have covered today. Your belly fat is not stubborn because of something you are doing wrong. It is stubborn because your body was specifically engineered through evolution to protect it. This is basic human biology, not a personal failing. Understanding this is the essential first step toward making lasting change. Fasting is not a magical overnight solution, but fasting creates a specific set of hormonal conditions that simple calorie restriction cannot achieve. When your insulin levels remain low for extended periods, when your growth hormone surges upward, when your metabolic system shifts into fat-burning mode, even the most heavily defended fat stores eventually have to yield. Combine strategic fasting with proper nutrition focused on protein and whole foods. Be patient with the process. Be consistent in your practice. Remember that your belly fat accumulated over months or years. It will not vanish in a week or two. But with the right approach, armed with understanding of what is happening inside your body, you can overcome those biological barriers. Your body is remarkably adaptable. The same mechanisms that make belly fat challenging to lose also mean your body can adjust and respond to new patterns when you give it the right signals consistently over time. Have you tried intermittent fasting before? What has your experience been with belly fat? I want to hear your stories, so share them in the comments below. And if this video helped you understand your body a little better, take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We will see you in the next one. You've probably heard that belly fat is bad for your health. But what if I told you there's a type of fat hidden deep inside your body that's far more dangerous than the fat you can pinch? It wraps around your liver, your stomach, your intestines. You can't see it in the mirror. You can't grab it with your hands. But it's actively contributing to disease right now. This is visceral fat. And in this video, we're going to explore one of the most effective ways to get rid of it. Fasting. Not because it's trendy, but because science shows it works in ways that regular dieting simply can't match. Before we dive in, please remember this is educational content, not medical advice. If you're considering any fasting protocol, talk to your healthcare professional first. Now let's start with the basics. There are two main types of fat in your body. The first is subcutaneous fat. This is the fat that sits right under your skin. It's the fat you can pinch on your belly, your thighs, your arms. When most people think about body fat, this is what they picture. But there's another type of fat that most people don't think about. Visceral fat. This fat doesn't sit under your skin. It sits deep inside your abdomen, packed around your internal organs. It surrounds your liver, your stomach, your pancreas, your intestines. You can't pinch it. You can't see it directly. But it's there. And if you have too much of it, it's causing problems right now whether you feel it or not. Here's why visceral fat is so much more dangerous than subcutaneous fat. It's not just sitting there doing nothing. Visceral fat is metabolically active. Think of it like a factory that never stops running. It constantly releases substances into your bloodstream. Inflammatory chemicals, free fatty acids, hormones that disrupt how your body works. And here's the critical part. Visceral fat has a direct connection to your liver through something called the portal vein. This means everything visceral fat releases goes straight to your liver first. It's like having a direct highway from this fat to one of your most important organs. When too many fatty acids flood into your liver, problems start to pile up. Your liver becomes less sensitive to insulin. It starts storing more fat. Your blood sugar regulation gets disrupted. Over time, this leads to conditions like fatty liver disease, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. Studies have shown that people with high levels of visceral fat have significantly higher risks of cardiovascular problems, even if their overall body weight seems normal. In fact, researchers have found that visceral fat is more strongly linked to metabolic disease than almost any other measure of body fat. This is why two people can weigh exactly the same, but have completely different health profiles. One person might carry most of their fat under their skin, distributed across their body. Another might carry a significant portion deep inside their abdomen, wrapped around their organs. On the scale, they look identical. But inside, the second person faces far greater health risks. A large meta-analysis involving over 800,000 participants found that high visceral fat increases the risk of cardiovascular disease by 55%. It increases the risk of stroke by 45%. These are dramatic numbers. And they help explain why some people develop heart disease or diabetes despite not appearing significantly overweight. So the question becomes, how do you get rid of it? Many people try the obvious approach. They eat less. They cut calories. And yes, eating fewer calories than you burn will cause weight loss. But here's something interesting that research has revealed. When you simply cut calories while eating frequently throughout the day, your body doesn't necessarily target visceral fat first. You lose weight, but the visceral fat often stays stubbornly in place. Why does this happen? The answer has to do with a hormone called insulin. Every time you eat, your body releases insulin. Insulin's job is to help move nutrients from your blood into your cells. But insulin also has another important function. It tells your body to store fat, and it prevents your body from releasing fat that's already stored. When insulin is high, fat stays locked inside your fat cells. When insulin is low, fat can be released and burned for energy. Now think about how most people eat today. Breakfast in the morning, a snack mid-morning, lunch, an afternoon snack, dinner, maybe something before bed. That's 5 or 6 eating occasions per day. Every single one triggers insulin release. This means insulin stays elevated for most of your waking hours. When insulin is constantly elevated, your body rarely gets the signal to release stored fat. It's stuck in storage mode almost all the time. And visceral fat, despite being dangerous, stays right where it is. This creates a frustrating cycle for many people. They eat less food, but they still eat frequently. Their total calories go down, so they lose some weight. But their insulin never drops low enough for long enough to really unlock that deep visceral fat. The number on the scale changes, but the dangerous fat around their organs remains stubbornly in place. This is where fasting changes everything. When you fast, you stop eating for an extended period. No food means no insulin spikes, and as the hours pass without food, your insulin levels drop lower and lower. Let me walk you through what happens in your body when you fast. In the first 0 to 12 hours after your last meal, your body is still processing the food you ate. Blood sugar is stable. Insulin is doing its job. Your body is using glucose, which is sugar from your food, as its primary fuel source. Your liver has a backup supply of glucose stored as glycogen, and it starts tapping into this reserve. Around the 12 to 16-hour mark, things start to shift. Your glycogen stores are running low. Insulin drops significantly. And now, your body needs to find another fuel source. It turns to fat. This is when fat cells start releasing their stored fatty acids into your bloodstream. Your body begins burning fat for energy. And here's what's particularly interesting. Visceral fat gets released faster than subcutaneous fat during this process. Why? Because of that direct connection to the liver we talked about earlier. The same portal vein that makes visceral fat dangerous also makes it more accessible. When your body needs fat for fuel, visceral fat is the first to respond. Between 16 and 24 hours of fasting, you're now fully in fat-burning mode. Insulin is low. Fatty acids are flowing. Your liver starts converting these fats into molecules called ketones, which your brain and muscles can use for energy. At this stage, visceral fat is actively being broken down. The longer you maintain this low insulin state, the more visceral fat you mobilize. Some people worry about feeling weak or tired during this process. And yes, in the early hours you might feel hungry. You might notice your energy dips slightly, as your body makes the switch from burning glucose to burning fat. This is normal. It's your body adjusting to a different fuel source. But here's what many people find surprising. Once the transition is complete, usually somewhere between 18 and 24 hours, many people actually feel more alert and focused than usual. This isn't just psychological. When your body runs on ketones instead of glucose, it provides a steadier, more stable energy supply to your brain. No sugar spikes and crashes, just consistent fuel. Now you might be wondering about something. If your body is burning fat for fuel, what about your muscles? This is a common concern. People worry that fasting will cause them to lose muscle mass. Here's what the science shows. During fasting, your body releases significantly more growth hormone. Studies have measured increases of up to 5 times normal levels during extended fasts. This surge in growth hormone serves a very specific purpose. It protects your muscles from being broken down while simultaneously promoting fat burning. This makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. Our ancestors didn't have refrigerators or grocery stores. They went through periods without food regularly. If fasting caused rapid muscle loss, they wouldn't have been able to hunt or gather food when it became available again. They would have gotten weaker and weaker until they couldn't survive. Instead, the human body evolved a clever system. When food is scarce, it preserves muscle and burns fat. Growth hormone is a key part of this system. It shields your muscles while directing your body to use stored fat, especially visceral fat, for energy. Research has confirmed this. Studies comparing fasting to simple calorie restriction have found that people who fast tend to preserve more muscle mass while losing more fat mass, particularly from the abdominal area. Now let's talk about something that happens during longer fasts. It's called autophagy. Autophagy is a Greek word that means self-eating. That sounds alarming, but it's actually one of the most beneficial processes in your body. During autophagy, your cells clean house. They break down and recycle damaged proteins, malfunctioning components, and cellular debris. Think of it as your body's internal maintenance system. When it's activated, your cells become more efficient and healthier. Autophagy typically ramps up after about 24 to 48 hours of fasting, though some level of it begins earlier. In 2016, Japanese scientist Yoshinori Osumi won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for his discoveries about how autophagy works. His research showed that this process is fundamental to cellular health and longevity. What does this have to do with visceral fat? Recent research from Osaka University published in 2022 revealed something fascinating. When you fast, a gene called Rubicon gets suppressed in your fat tissue. Normally, Rubicon acts like a brake on autophagy. When it's suppressed, autophagy accelerates. The researchers found that this leads to faster breakdown of fat-promoting proteins in fat cells, which accelerates fat loss. In other words, fasting doesn't just burn fat by creating a calorie deficit. It actually changes how your fat cells function at the genetic level, making them more likely to break down and release their contents. Now you might be thinking that you need to fast for 2 full days to get these benefits. That's not necessarily true. While autophagy increases significantly after 24 hours, some level of cellular cleanup begins much earlier. Even a 16 or 18-hour fast triggers beneficial changes in your cells. The longer fasts simply amplify these effects. The key takeaway here is that fasting does more than just reduce calories. It fundamentally changes your body's internal environment in ways that specifically target fat storage, particularly the visceral fat that poses the greatest health risks. So what does the research actually show about fasting and visceral fat specifically? One study compared intermittent fasting to traditional calorie restriction, both groups consumed the same total number of calories per week. The only difference was the pattern of eating. The results were striking. The fasting group lost 33% of their visceral fat. The calorie restriction group lost only 14%. Same calories, very different outcomes for visceral fat. Another study used MRI scans to precisely measure fat in different parts of the body. Participants with prediabetes followed an intermittent fasting protocol for 12 weeks. The scans showed significant reductions in visceral fat, liver fat, and even fat around the pancreas. These are exactly the fat deposits most strongly linked to metabolic disease. A meta-analysis looking at over 800,000 participants found that higher levels of visceral fat are associated with a 55% increased risk of cardiovascular disease. The same analysis found that reducing visceral fat through interventions like fasting significantly lowered these risks. The evidence consistently points in the same direction. Fasting is particularly effective at targeting visceral fat, more so than many other approaches. But before you get too excited, we need to talk about something important. Fasting isn't right for everyone, and it's not without risks. If you feel dizzy during a fast and it goes away after resting and drinking water, that's usually normal. Your body is adjusting. But if you experience severe dizziness that doesn't resolve, a racing heart that continues for more than 30 minutes, confusion, extreme weakness, or vomiting, these are signs to stop fasting immediately and consult a healthcare professional. Some people should not attempt fasting at all. This includes pregnant or breastfeeding women, people with a history of eating disorders, those with type 1 diabetes or insulin-dependent type 2 diabetes, anyone taking medications that require food, people who are underweight, and those with certain chronic health conditions. If you're unsure whether fasting is safe for you, please talk to your doctor before trying it. For those who can safely fast, there are several approaches to consider. The most common is time-restricted eating, often called the 16-8 method. You eat all your food within an 8-hour window and fast for the remaining 16 hours. For many people, this simply means skipping breakfast and not eating after dinner. Another approach is the 5-2 method. You eat normally 5 days per week, then significantly reduce calories on 2 non-consecutive days. Some people do longer fasts of 24 hours once or twice per week. There's no single best method. What matters most is finding an approach you can sustain consistently. The benefits of fasting come from regularly giving your body extended periods with low insulin. Whether that's 16 hours or 24 hours matters less than whether you can maintain it over time. Many people find it helpful to start gradually. If you normally eat from 7 in the morning until 10 at night, that's a 15-hour eating window. Try narrowing it to 12 hours first, then 10, then 8. Your body adapts over time. What feels difficult in the first week often becomes natural by the 4th or 5th week. Hydration matters during fasting. Water, plain tea, and black coffee are generally fine and don't break a fast. Staying well hydrated helps reduce hunger and prevents headaches that some people experience, especially in the beginning. One more thing worth mentioning. Research shows that combining fasting with exercise produces even better results for visceral fat than either approach alone. Studies found that adding moderate intensity cardio to a fasting protocol significantly enhanced visceral fat loss. The combination seems to amplify the fat-burning effects. This makes sense when you think about it. Exercise increases the demand for energy. When you exercise in a fasted state, your body has no choice but to pull that energy from stored fat. And as we've discussed, visceral fat is particularly responsive to being mobilized. So let's bring this all together. Visceral fat is the hidden fat surrounding your organs. It's more dangerous than the fat you can see because it actively releases harmful substances directly into your bloodstream and liver. It's strongly linked to heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and metabolic syndrome. Traditional dieting, where you simply eat less but still eat frequently, often fails to target visceral fat effectively. The constant presence of insulin keeps fat locked in storage. Fasting works differently. By extending the time between meals, you allow insulin to drop low enough for your body to switch into fat-burning mode. Visceral fat, because of its direct connection to the liver, gets mobilized faster than other fat stores. Growth hormone rises to protect your muscles. And with longer fasts, autophagy kicks in to enhance fat cell breakdown at the cellular level. Research consistently shows that fasting reduces visceral fat more effectively than calorie restriction alone, even when total calories are the same. Fasting isn't about punishing your body. It's about giving your body the time it needs to do what it already knows how to do. Burn the fat it's been storing, especially the dangerous fat hidden deep inside. Listen to your body throughout the process. Start slowly if you're new to fasting. Stay hydrated. And if something feels wrong, stop and seek guidance. Have you tried fasting before? What was your experience? I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And if this video helped you understand visceral fat and why fasting works, consider sharing it with someone who might benefit from this information. If you want to learn more about what happens inside your body during extended fasting hour by hour, make sure you're subscribed. We explore the science behind these processes in detail. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. If you're over 40 and you've noticed that losing weight has become much harder than it used to be, you're not wrong. Your body has actually changed. The same strategies that worked in your 20s and 30s simply don't produce the same results anymore. And today, we're going to talk about exactly what's happening inside you, why it's happening, and how intermittent fasting might help reverse this process. This isn't about miracle promises or quick fixes. This is science explained in a way that anyone can understand. No complicated medical jargon, no confusing theories, just clear explanations of what's really going on in your body. Before we dive in, please remember that this is educational content, not medical advice. Talk to your doctor before trying any fasting method, especially if you have existing health conditions. Now, if you've ever felt like your body is actively working against every effort you make, if you've tried eating less and exercising more, but the scale refuses to budge, keep watching. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's going on. And more importantly, you'll know what you can do about it. Let's start with the fundamental question. What actually changes in your body after 40? The first major change is something called insulin sensitivity. To understand this, let's first understand what insulin does. Insulin is a hormone produced by your pancreas. Every time you eat, especially carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises. Insulin is released to help that sugar leave your bloodstream and enter your cells, where it can be used for energy. Think of it as a key that unlocks the door to your cells so glucose can get in. When you're young, this system works efficiently. A small amount of insulin opens the doors wide, and sugar moves into your cells quickly. After 40, your cells start responding more slowly to insulin. They become less sensitive to it. The doors don't open as easily. As a result, your body has to produce more insulin to do the same job it used to do with less. Here's where the problem starts. When insulin levels are high in your blood, your body stays in what we can call storage mode. It's focused on storing energy, not burning it. And specifically, it's very difficult for your body to access and burn stored fat when insulin is elevated. The fat cells are essentially locked. So even if you're eating the same amount of food you ate at 25, your body is handling it differently. More insulin circulating in your blood means more time in storage mode, which means less fat burning throughout the day. The second change happens at the cellular level in tiny structures called mitochondria. These are essentially the power plants inside every cell of your body. They take nutrients and convert them into energy. After 40, these cellular power plants become less efficient. They don't produce energy as effectively as they once did. This means your body burns calories more slowly even when you're exercising. Your metabolic rate naturally decreases. The third change is muscle loss. This process, called sarcopenia, begins around age 30. After that, adults lose approximately 3 to 8% of their muscle mass every decade. Why does this matter for weight loss? Because muscle tissue burns more calories than fat tissue, even when you're just sitting still. Less muscle means fewer calories burned throughout the day. This makes it easier to gain weight and harder to lose it. So when you combine these three factors, reduced insulin sensitivity, less efficient mitochondria, and declining muscle mass, you begin to understand why the diet that worked perfectly at 25 doesn't work at 45. It's not about willpower. It's about cellular chemistry that has fundamentally changed. But that's not the whole story. There's another factor making everything worse, and it's located right inside your belly. Let's talk about visceral fat. This is the fat that wraps around your internal organs, your liver, your intestines, your heart. It's different from the fat just under your skin that you can pinch. You can't see visceral fat in the mirror, but it's there. And it's doing more than just taking up space. Visceral fat is not passive storage. It's metabolically active tissue that constantly releases chemical signals into your bloodstream. In fact, scientists now consider visceral fat to be almost like an endocrine organ, a tissue that produces and releases hormones. Specifically, visceral fat releases inflammatory substances called cytokines, things like interleukin 6 and TNF alpha. These inflammatory signals travel through your blood and affect tissues throughout your body. One of their main effects is making insulin resistance worse. This creates a negative cycle that can feel impossible to break. The more visceral fat you have, the more inflammation you produce. The more inflammation you have, the worse your insulin resistance becomes. And the worse your insulin resistance, the easier it is to store more fat, and the harder it becomes to burn fat. It feeds on itself. There's another problem specific to visceral fat that makes it particularly dangerous. It releases these inflammatory substances directly into something called the portal vein, which is a direct highway to your liver. Your liver gets hit first and hardest, disrupting how it processes sugar and fat. This can lead to a condition called fatty liver disease, which further impairs your metabolism. This is why many people feel like weight gain accelerates as they get older. It's not in their head. The fat they already have is actively making it easier to store even more fat. Biology is genuinely working against them. So is there a way to break this cycle? The answer lies in a process your body already knows how to do, but may not have activated in years. Let's walk through what happens when you practice intermittent fasting, hour by hour. During hours 0 to 12, after your last meal, your body first uses the sugar circulating in your blood. Then it starts pulling glycogen from your liver. Glycogen is simply stored sugar, your body's most easily accessible energy reserve. During this phase, you might feel hungry. This is normal. Your body is used to receiving food regularly, and it's sending signals asking for more. From hours 12 to 18, things start to shift. Your glycogen stores are running low. As they deplete, your insulin levels drop significantly. This is the key moment. When insulin is low, your body can finally start accessing stored fat for energy. The process of breaking down fat, called lipolysis, begins to accelerate. Between hours 16 and 24, something remarkable happens. Your body significantly increases production of human growth hormone, or HGH. The numbers here are impressive. Research published in Frontiers in Endocrinology in 2024 found that a 24-hour fast increased HGH by an average of 1,300% in women and nearly 2,000% in men. Other studies have documented increases ranging from 300% to over 1,200%. Why does HGH matter? This hormone helps protect muscle mass, promotes fat burning, and supports cellular repair. It's one of the key hormones that decline with age, and fasting naturally stimulates its production. From hours 18 to 24 and beyond, another process activates. It's called autophagy, which literally means self-eating in Greek. Don't let the name alarm you. This is actually one of the most beneficial things that can happen in your body. When there's no new food coming in, your cells begin recycling their own damaged components. Broken proteins, malfunctioning, mitochondria, cellular waste, all of this gets broken down and either eliminated or reused as building materials for new healthy cellular components. Think of it as a deep cleaning that your cells perform when they're not busy processing new food. The scientific understanding of how fasting affects our cells at this deep level has advanced dramatically in recent decades. One of the most striking discoveries came from Professor Walter Longo at the University of Southern California. In 2008, Longo published a landmark study that changed how scientists think about fasting and cellular protection. His research began with a simple observation in yeast cells. When he starved the yeast of nutrients, they didn't just survive, they became remarkably protected against stress. This led him to ask a fascinating question. Could this protection be useful for something practical in humans? The answer was cancer treatment. In his 2008 study, Longo found that fasting for 2 days protected healthy cells against the toxic effects of chemotherapy, while the cancer cells remained vulnerable. Healthy cells essentially went into a protective mode during the fast. Cancer cells, which by definition cannot stop replicating, stayed exposed to the treatment. This discovery opened the door to a completely new way of thinking about how fasting affects our cells. It showed that when we stop eating for extended periods, our healthy cells don't just sit idle. They activate powerful self-protection and self-repair mechanisms. Multiple clinical trials are now underway testing these findings in cancer patients, and the results continue to be promising. The implications go far beyond cancer treatment. This research demonstrated that fasting triggers fundamental changes at the cellular level, changes that can protect and rejuvenate cells throughout the body. This isn't theory. This is documented, peer-reviewed biology. Your body has the ability to repair and optimize itself. Fasting is simply the signal that activates this process. But there's another benefit that many people don't expect, and it relates to your brain. Many people who practice intermittent fasting report feeling more focused and mentally clear during their fasting periods. This isn't imagination. There's real biology behind it. When glucose runs low, your liver begins converting fat into molecules called ketones. Your brain can use ketones as fuel, and research suggests that ketones provide a more stable energy source than glucose. With glucose, you get spikes and crashes. Your blood sugar goes up after a meal, then drops, leaving you tired and unfocused. With ketones, the energy supply is steadier. Many people describe it as a fog lifting from their mind. There's also a protein called BDNF, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for your brain cells. It supports the growth of new neurons and protects existing ones. Research shows that fasting can stimulate BDNF production. BDNF is associated with improved memory, better learning ability, and protection against age-related cognitive decline. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. For millions of years, our ancestors regularly experienced periods without food. Food was not always available. There were no refrigerators, no grocery stores, no delivery apps. Successful hunts were uncertain. Seasons affected food availability. Those who became weak, slow, and confused when hungry didn't survive long. They couldn't hunt effectively. They couldn't escape predators. They didn't live long enough to pass on their genes. The humans who thrived were those whose bodies and brains actually performed better during short periods without food. Their senses sharpened, their focus intensified. They became more alert, more capable, more likely to succeed in finding their next meal. Your body carries this evolutionary heritage. It is designed to function well during fasting periods. That mental clarity and heightened focus isn't a bug or a strange side effect. It's a feature that's been refined over millions of years of human evolution. When you fast, you're tapping into ancient biological programming that kept your ancestors alive. Now let's talk about something practical that can make or break your success with intermittent fasting. Learning to tell the difference between real biological hunger and habitual cravings. Real hunger is driven by a hormone called ghrelin. Here's something important to understand. Ghrelin rises in waves. It peaks and then it falls. If you wait 20 to 30 minutes when you feel hungry, that wave of hunger will often pass on its own. Ghrelin is also trained by your eating habits. If you normally eat lunch at noon, your body will release ghrelin around noon, making you feel hungry. But after a few days of a new eating schedule, ghrelin adjusts. Your body learns the new pattern. Habitual cravings are different. These are triggered by time, by emotions like stress or boredom, or by environmental cues like walking past a bakery or seeing food advertisements. This isn't your body genuinely needing energy, it's psychology and habit. Learning to recognize the difference is a game changer for anyone trying intermittent fasting. When you feel the urge to eat during your fasting window, pause for a moment. Ask yourself a simple question. Is this real hunger or is this just habit? Here's a practical test. Try drinking a glass of water and waiting 20 minutes. Staying hydrated is important during fasting anyway, so this serves double duty. If the feeling of hunger passes after those 20 minutes, it was probably just a habitual craving triggered by the clock or your environment. If it persists and grows stronger, your body might actually need food. In that case, listen to it. Over time, as you practice intermittent fasting, you'll get better at recognizing these signals. You'll learn your body's language, and you'll realize that much of what you thought was hunger was actually just habit. Before we continue, I need to talk about who should not practice extended fasting. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, fasting is not appropriate for you. The same applies if you have a history of eating disorders. If you have insulin-dependent diabetes, do not fast without medical supervision. The interaction between fasting and insulin medication can be dangerous. If you take medications that need to be consumed with food, talk to your doctor before changing your eating schedule. If you're underweight, fasting could be harmful. And children and adolescents should not practice extended fasting. Their bodies are still developing and need regular nutrition. You should also know the warning signs that mean you need to stop fasting immediately. Severe dizziness that doesn't go away. A racing heart or irregular heartbeat. Confusion or difficulty thinking clearly. Severe nausea or vomiting. Feeling like you might faint. If any of these symptoms last more than 30 minutes, stop your fast and consult a healthcare professional. Your body knows what it needs. Learn to listen to it. I also want to be clear about expectations. What I've described are general responses. Every person is different. Some people feel great at hour 16. Others need longer to adapt. Some people do well with 16-hour fasts. Others find that too challenging and do better starting with 12 or 14 hours. Don't force yourself beyond your limits. The goal isn't to suffer. The goal is to work with your body, not against it. Now let's bring everything together. Your body after 40 isn't broken. It hasn't betrayed you. It's operating according to biological rules that have changed over time. Insulin sensitivity has decreased, making it harder for your cells to use glucose efficiently. Your cellular power plants, the mitochondria, are less efficient than they used to be. You've lost muscle mass, which means your body burns fewer calories at rest. And if you have visceral fat, it's actively producing inflammation that makes everything harder. These changes are real. They're documented in thousands of research studies. And understanding them is the first step to working with your body instead of against it. Intermittent fasting isn't a miracle cure. It won't solve every health problem. It's not right for everyone. But it is a way to activate repair mechanisms that your body still possesses mechanisms that may have been dormant for years because they never got the signal to turn on. By extending the time between meals, you lower insulin levels, which finally unlocks access to stored fat. By triggering HGH production, you protect muscle mass and accelerate fat burning. By activating autophagy, you allow your cells to clean house, remove damaged components, and renew themselves at the cellular level. By shifting to ketone metabolism, you give your brain a cleaner, more stable fuel source. This is biology, not magic. These processes don't require expensive supplements or complicated programs. They're built into your body, waiting to be activated. You don't need to fight against your body. You need to understand it and give it what it needs to function optimally. Sometimes that means eating. And sometimes it means not eating. Fasting is a tool, not a religion. The goal isn't to push your body to extremes. It's to work with the ancient biological systems that helped humans survive and thrive for millions of years. Some doctors say you should never fast beyond 12 hours. Others point to peer-reviewed research showing profound benefits at 16, 24, even 48 hours. Where do you stand? And more importantly, where does your body tell you to stand? Everyone is different. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments. What's the most frustrating thing about your body after 40? I read every comment. And if this video helped you understand your body better, share it with someone who's been fighting the same frustrating battle. Sometimes, understanding the why makes all the difference. Subscribe to this channel if you want to learn more about the science behind what your body can do. We're just getting started. Remember, your body has been waiting for this signal for years. It already knows how to heal, how to repair, how to optimize itself. You just have to give it the chance. The question isn't whether your body can change after 40. It's whether you're ready to let it. Imagine eating a big steak dinner over 100 grams of protein in one sitting, and instead of shutting down your body's internal cleanup system, it keeps running. Meanwhile, you're building muscle and burning belly fat at the same time. For years, we've been told this is impossible. Protein spikes insulin. Insulin stops autophagy. You have to choose between building muscle or cleaning your cells. You can't have both. But what if that's not entirely true? A 2023 study from Maastricht University in the Netherlands discovered something that challenges everything we thought we knew about protein and fat loss. Now, before we go further, let me be clear. This isn't about eating unlimited protein without consequences. There are specific conditions where this works and specific situations where it doesn't. Today, we're going to break down exactly what happens inside your body when you eat more protein, why it may actually help you burn visceral belly fat, and most importantly, who this works for and who needs to be careful. This is educational content, not medical advice. If you have kidney issues or any health conditions, please talk to your doctor first. Let's start with the study that changed everything. In December 2023, a research team led by Dr. Jorn Tromelin at Maastricht University Medical Center published a study in Cell Reports Medicine that made waves in the nutrition science world. They called it the BBQ study because they wanted to test whether you could eat the amount of protein you'd typically consume at a barbecue, around 100 grams, and still benefit from it. Here's why this matters. For decades, fitness experts told us that your body can only use about 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. Anything beyond that, they said, gets wasted or converted to sugar. So the advice was simple. Spread your protein into small meals throughout the day. But Tromelin's team suspected something was wrong with this advice. Previous studies only measured muscle protein synthesis for 4 to 6 hours after eating. What if they simply stopped measuring too early? So they tracked participants for a full 12 hours using advanced isotope tracer technology. They compared two groups, one that ate 25 grams of protein and another that ate 100 grams, both after a full body resistance workout. The results were remarkable. The group that ate 100 grams didn't just build more muscle. They continued building muscle for over 12 hours, showing muscle protein synthesis rates that were 30% higher than the 25-gram group. And here's what really surprised the researchers: less than 15% of the extra amino acids were wasted or burned as fuel, the so-called 30-gram limit. It was based on studies that simply stopped measuring too early. Your body can use far more protein than we thought. But here's where it gets really interesting. This study didn't just measure muscle building. They also looked at what was happening to the body's cleanup systems. And what they found challenges the old belief that protein completely shuts down autophagy. To understand why, we need to look at how protein and carbohydrates affect your body differently. When you eat carbohydrates, especially sugar or starchy foods, your blood glucose rises quickly. In response, your pancreas releases a large amount of insulin. Think of insulin as a broadcast signal that reaches almost every cell in your body. The message is clear. Energy is available. Stop cleaning up. Start storing. This insulin surge acts like a system-wide shutdown for autophagy. Your body shifts from cleanup mode to storage mode. Protein works differently. Yes, protein does raise insulin. But here's what most people don't realize. Protein raises insulin by roughly half as much as carbohydrates with the same calories. That's a significant difference. More importantly, protein activates specific sensors in your cells, not a broadcast signal to your entire body. The main sensor is called cestrin 2, which specifically detects leucine, the most important amino acid for muscle building. When cestrin 2 detects leucine, it activates the growth pathway in that specific tissue. The message from protein isn't store energy everywhere. It's repair and rebuild in targeted areas. But there's something else most people overlook. In real life, we rarely eat protein by itself. Protein plus carbohydrates, like chicken with rice, causes a much larger insulin spike than protein alone. Protein plus fat, like a fatty steak, slows down digestion and creates a more gradual insulin response. And lean protein by itself, like chicken breast, fish, or egg whites, causes the smallest insulin response. Let me give you a practical example. If you eat 150 grams of grilled chicken breast with a salad, your insulin rises moderately, and autophagy is only slightly affected in most tissues. But if you eat that same chicken breast with a large bowl of white rice, your insulin rises much more sharply, and autophagy decreases significantly throughout your body. This is why the type of meal matters, not just the protein content. Lean protein eaten without a lot of carbohydrates behaves very differently than protein eaten with bread, rice, or pasta. So protein by itself doesn't completely stop your body's cleanup systems. But what actually happens to all that protein you eat? Where does it go? This brings us to something the researchers call the muscle sponge effect, and understanding the specific conditions that make it work. After you digest, protein amino acids enter your bloodstream. From there, they can travel to your muscles, your liver, your fat tissue, or other organs. Here's the key point. If your muscles are hungry for amino acids, they absorb them very quickly, like a dry sponge dropped into water. When your muscles soak up amino acids that fast, your blood doesn't get flooded with nutrients. Your liver and fat tissue don't receive a strong nutrient signal. And because they don't sense excess nutrients, they can continue their normal cleanup processes. But this doesn't happen automatically. There are specific conditions required for the muscle sponge effect to work. The first and most important condition is exercise, specifically resistance training. When you lift weights or do resistance exercises, you create tiny tears in your muscle fibers. Your muscles need amino acids to repair this damage. After a workout, your muscles are primed to absorb amino acids at their highest rate. In the Maastricht study, all participants did a full-body resistance workout before eating their protein. This is crucial. The muscle sponge effect is strongest after exercise. The second condition is being in a fasted state. When you haven't eaten for 12 to 16 hours, your muscles are also in a nutrient-depleted state. They're ready to absorb amino acids. Protein consumed after an overnight fast or after intermittent fasting is absorbed more efficiently than protein eaten a few hours after your last meal. However, the fasted state alone is not as powerful as the post-exercise state. Combining both, eating protein after fasting and after exercise creates the strongest muscle sponge effect. The third condition is having low insulin levels. When insulin is high, your body is in storage mode. When insulin is low, your body is ready for repair mode. If you've just eaten a carbohydrate-rich meal and then eat protein shortly after, the muscle sponge effect is weakened because insulin is already elevated. Now let's talk about when the muscle sponge effect does not work well. If you eat protein right after a high-carb meal, insulin is already high, and your muscles aren't as receptive. If you eat protein without exercising and without being in a fasted state, your muscles don't have the same urgent need for amino acids. And if you're constantly snacking throughout the day, keeping insulin elevated, you never create the conditions for optimal protein absorption. Think of your muscles like a sponge. After exercise or after fasting, the sponge is dry and ready to absorb. But if the sponge is already wet from constant eating, pouring more water on it just causes overflow. This explains why when you eat protein matters almost as much as how much you eat. But here's where things get more complicated. This doesn't work the same way for everyone. Let's break down what happens in three different groups of people: those at a healthy weight, those carrying excess body fat, and older adults. For people at a healthy weight or who are lean, the biological situation is favorable. Insulin sensitivity is good, meaning your cells respond efficiently to insulin signals. Autophagy functions normally, and muscles respond well to protein intake. When someone in this group eats a high protein meal, especially after exercise, the muscle sponge effect works efficiently. Muscles absorb amino acids quickly. Autophagy continues in the liver and fat tissue because they don't sense a nutrient flood. This group can achieve what researchers call a dual state building muscle and maintaining cellular cleanup at the same time. For people in this category, the research supports eating around 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. You can eat larger protein meals after workouts, 40 to 60 grams, without worrying about waste. Focus on lean protein sources to optimize the effect. For people who are overweight or obese, the situation is more complicated. Visceral fat, the deep fat that wraps around your internal organs, isn't just passive storage. It's metabolically active. It secretes inflammatory chemicals like TNF alpha and interleukin 6 into your bloodstream. These inflammatory signals interfere with your body's cleanup machinery. Here's what researchers found in people with obesity. The signals telling the body to start autophagy are actually elevated. On paper, it looks like their bodies are desperately trying to clean house. But when scientists measured autophagy flux, the actual rate of cellular cleanup, it was significantly reduced. The command to clean is being sent, but the machinery isn't responding. Imagine a car on a freezing winter morning. You turn the key. The starter clicks and clicks, but the engine won't start. That's what's happening with autophagy in someone carrying excess visceral fat. The ignition signal is there, but the system is jammed by inflammation. When someone in this group eats high protein, the muscle sponge effect may be reduced because of insulin resistance. Muscles don't absorb amino acids as efficiently. But here's the important part. Protein still offers significant benefits for this group just through different mechanisms. The thermic effect still burns extra calories during digestion. Satiety hormones still help reduce hunger. And protein still helps protect muscle mass during weight loss. For people carrying excess weight, the primary goal should be reducing visceral fat first. As that fat decreases, inflammation drops and autophagy function naturally improves. Aim for around 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of your target body weight, not your current weight. Prioritize lean protein to keep total calories in check, and combine high protein intake with a modest caloric deficit. For older adults, typically those over 50, there's another factor to consider: anabolic resistance. As we age, our muscles become less responsive to the signals that trigger muscle building. The sestrin, two sensors that detect leucine, become less sensitive. It's like the volume on the signal has been turned down and you need a louder message to get the same response. Research shows that younger adults can maximize muscle protein synthesis with about 20 grams of high-quality protein containing roughly 1 to 2 grams of leucine. But older adults need approximately 40 grams of protein containing 3 or more grams of leucine to achieve the same effect. A 2012 study by Young and colleagues demonstrated this clearly. Young participants responded strongly to 20 grams of whey protein. Older participants needed double that amount to reach similar muscle protein synthesis rates. For older adults, the recommendations are different. Aim for 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, which is higher than the standard recommendation of 0.8 grams. Distribute protein across 3 to 4 meals, with each meal containing 30 to 40 grams. Prioritize protein sources rich in leucine beef chicken, fish eggs, and whey protein, and combine protein intake with resistance exercise to increase muscle sensitivity. So we've seen how protein affects different groups of people. But there's another piece of the puzzle that most people overlook. Protein doesn't just build muscle. It actually helps you burn more calories just by eating it. This is called the thermic effect of food. When you eat, your body uses energy to digest, absorb, and process the nutrients. Not all calories are created equal in this regard. Some foods require more energy to process than others. Here's how the three macronutrients compare. Protein has a thermic effect of 20 to 30%. This means your body burns 20 to 30% of the calories from protein just to process it. Carbohydrates have a thermic effect of 5 to 10%. Fat has a thermic effect of 0 to 3%. Let me put this in concrete numbers. If you eat 1,000 calories from protein, your body keeps only about 700 to 800 usable calories. The rest is burned during digestion and processing. If you eat 1,000 calories from fat, your body keeps about 970 to 1,000 usable calories. That's a difference of 200 to 300 calories just from how your body processes the food. Over time, this adds up. If you increase your protein intake from 15% to 30% of your total calories, you automatically burn an extra 50 to 100 calories per day just from the thermic effect. Over a year, that's 18,000 to 36,000 extra calories burned, equivalent to roughly 2 to 4 kilograms of body fat. Why does protein have such a high thermic effect? Because amino acid chains are complex molecules. Your body needs many different enzymes to break them apart. Then it has to remove the nitrogen from amino acids through a process called deamination. Finally, it has to convert that nitrogen into urea to be excreted through your kidneys. All of these steps require energy. This is why high-protein diets can help with fat loss. But let me be clear, this is not magic. If you eat too many total calories, you will still gain weight regardless of how much protein you consume. Protein gives you an advantage in the math, but it doesn't give you a free pass to eat unlimited food. There's another way protein helps with fat loss, and it has nothing to do with calories or metabolism. It's about hunger. Many people fail at weight loss, not because they don't know what to eat, but because they're constantly hungry. Willpower has limits. Hormones do not. When you eat protein, your digestive system releases two important hormones, LP1 and PYY. GLP1, or glucagon-like peptide, one is released from your small intestine when food arrives. It slows down digestion, which makes you feel full longer. Here's an interesting fact, GLP1 is exactly the hormone that weight loss medications like Ozempic and Wegovy target. These drugs work by mimicking GLP1's effects. But your body can produce this hormone naturally in response to protein. PYY, or peptide YY, is released from your large intestine. It sends signals to your brain saying you've had enough food. It reduces appetite and decreases cravings, especially for sweet foods. A 2013 study by Clow and colleagues tested this directly. They gave 8 healthy volunteers 3 different breakfasts on separate days: high protein, high carbohydrate, and high fat. All 3 breakfasts had the same calories. The results were clear. The high-protein breakfast produced the highest levels of both GLP1 and PYY. The high carbohydrate breakfast produced insulin levels more than double the high protein breakfast, but lower satiety hormones. The high fat breakfast fell somewhere in between. What does this mean practically? When you eat a high protein meal, you naturally feel less hungry afterward. You eat less at your next meal without needing willpower to resist food. Your body's hormones do the work for you. This is why a high-protein breakfast is often recommended for people trying to lose weight. It sets up your hormones for the entire day. Now let's be honest about something important. I want to make sure we're being realistic here. Protein is a powerful tool, but it is not a miracle cure. Here's what protein can do. It protects your muscle mass when you're losing weight, which is crucial because losing muscle slows your metabolism. It increases the thermic effect of your diet, burning extra calories through digestion. It increases satiety hormones, reducing hunger naturally. And under the right conditions, it allows your body to continue cellular cleanup while still supporting muscle repair. Here's what protein cannot do. It cannot replace a caloric deficit for weight loss. It cannot burn fat if you're eating too many total calories. It cannot overcome a sedentary lifestyle. And it cannot replace adequate sleep or stress management. Here's an uncomfortable truth. If you're eating 2,500 calories per day and burning only 2,000, you will gain weight, even if 100% of those calories come from protein. The laws of energy balance still apply. Protein is one piece of a larger puzzle. You need caloric awareness, regular exercise, sufficient sleep, and stress management. Protein makes the journey easier by keeping you fuller and protecting your muscle, but it doesn't replace the journey itself. Let's talk about safety and practical recommendations. Based on current research, here are the evidence-based guidelines. For healthy adults, 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day is considered safe and effective for supporting muscle and metabolism. Going above 2.2 grams per kilogram provides minimal additional benefit for most people. Studies have not shown harm at 3 grams per kilogram in healthy individuals, but there's also no proven additional benefit. However, certain groups need to be more careful. If you have chronic kidney disease, high protein intake creates additional work for your kidneys. Please consult your doctor before significantly increasing protein. If you have a history of kidney stones, high intake of animal protein may increase your risk. Consider plant proteins or speak with a healthcare provider. If you have a history of eating disorders, focusing intensely on any single macronutrient can potentially trigger obsessive behaviors. Work with a healthcare professional if this applies to you. Let me give you a practical example of what a high-protein day might look like for someone weighing 70 kilograms who wants to consume around 120 to 140 grams of protein. For breakfast, you might have 3 whole eggs, which provides about 21 grams of protein, plus 100 grams of Greek yogurt for 10 grams and 1 slice of whole grain toast for 4 grams. That's roughly 35 grams of protein. For lunch, 150 grams of grilled chicken breast gives you about 45 grams of protein. Add a large salad with mixed greens, olive oil, and vegetables. For dinner, 150 grams of salmon provides about 35 grams of protein. Add a serving of quinoa for another 5 grams along with roasted vegetables. For a snack, you could have a 30-gram whey protein shake or 200 grams of cottage cheese, providing around 20 to 25 grams of protein. A few practical tips to keep in mind. Prioritize whole food protein sources over supplements when possible. Your body absorbs and uses nutrients from whole foods more effectively. Distribute your protein fairly evenly across meals, especially if you're over 50. This ensures you hit the leucine threshold at each meal to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. Drink plenty of water when eating high protein. Your kidneys need water to process and excrete the nitrogen from amino acids. Combine your protein intake with resistance training to maximize the benefits. Exercise makes your muscles more receptive to protein and enhances all the effects we've discussed. So let's bring everything together. The old belief that protein destroys autophagy and stops fat burning is incomplete. Science now shows that your body is far more intelligent than a simple on-off switch. When you eat protein, especially lean protein, especially after exercise or fasting, and especially when you're not flooding your system with carbohydrates, at the same time your muscles absorb those amino acids quickly. Your liver and fat tissue don't experience a nutrient flood, and cellular cleanup can continue in those tissues while your muscles repair and grow. For people at a healthy weight, this means you can eat bigger protein meals without worry. The 30-gram limit was based on studies that measured for too short a time. For people carrying extra belly fat, high protein can actually help, not because it's magic, but because it burns more calories during digestion, keeps you fuller longer through satiety hormones, and helps protect your muscle while you lose fat. As you reduce visceral fat, your body's cleanup systems will naturally start working better. For older adults, the research clearly supports eating more protein, not less. Your muscles need a stronger signal to respond, which means larger protein doses and more attention to leucine-rich sources. But let's keep this in perspective. Protein is a powerful tool, not a miracle cure. It works best when combined with smart eating, regular movement, adequate sleep, and respect for your body's limits. It makes the journey of getting healthier easier, but it doesn't replace the journey. Here's my question for you. After learning all this, what's one change you're thinking about making to your protein intake? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this information was helpful, consider subscribing. We break down the science of how your body actually works. No hype, no magic pills, just real information you can use. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care of your body. It's the only one you've got. Imagine you stop eating at 6 p.m. tonight. You finish dinner, put down your fork, and that is it until morning. What actually happens to your belly fat over the next 12 hours while you sleep? The answer might change everything you thought you knew about losing that stubborn midsection. But first, let us clear up a very common misconception. The 6 p.m. rule that you have probably heard about is not really about 6 p.m. at all. That number is just an easy example to remember. What actually matters is the gap between your last bite of food and when you fall asleep. The real principle is this: stop eating 3 to 4 hours before your bedtime. That buffer zone is where the magic happens, and it works regardless of what time you actually go to bed. Let me show you what this looks like for different schedules. If you go to bed around 10:30 p.m., your last meal should finish around 6:30 p.m. That gives you a 4-hour buffer. If you are a night owl who sleeps at midnight, you can eat until 8 p.m. and still get the same benefits. And if you work late and do not get home until 7 p.m., you can have dinner at 7:30, finish by 8:30, and head to bed around 12:30 a.m. Same principle, different schedule. The point is that this is not a rigid rule tied to the clock. It is a principle tied to your sleep. And once you understand why this buffer matters, you will see why it works for almost everyone. Before we continue, I want to be clear that this is educational content, not medical advice. If you are considering changing your eating patterns, please consult with your healthcare provider first. Everyone's body responds differently. Now, let me walk you through exactly what happens inside your body during those overnight hours when you stop eating early enough. Right after you finish dinner, your digestive system gets to work. Glucose from your meal enters your bloodstream and your pancreas releases insulin to handle it. This is completely normal and healthy. Insulin's job is to move that energy into your cells where it can be used. But here is something important that most people do not realize. Insulin does two things at once. First, it helps your cells absorb energy from the food you just ate. Second, it sends a powerful signal telling your body to go into storage mode. And as long as insulin levels stay elevated, the door to your fat reserves stays firmly closed. Your body will not tap into stored fat while it is still busy processing new fuel coming in. It simply cannot do both at the same time. This is why that 3 to 4 hour buffer before sleep matters so much. You need to give your body enough time to finish processing dinner so that insulin can drop back down to baseline levels before you go to bed. If you eat late, say at 9 or 10 p.m., your body is still in processing mode when you fall asleep. Insulin stays elevated well past midnight, and the overnight fat burning window that we are about to discuss never opens. Now, here is where things get really interesting. As the evening progresses and darkness falls, a small gland deep in your brain, called the pineal gland, starts releasing melatonin. Most people know melatonin as the sleep hormone, but it does something else that almost nobody talks about. Melatonin fundamentally changes how your metabolism behaves at night. Here is the key detail. When melatonin levels rise, your insulin sensitivity naturally drops by about 30 to 40%. This means your body becomes significantly less efficient at handling incoming sugar during nighttime hours. This is not a flaw in your biology. It is actually intelligent design that has been refined over hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution. Our ancestors ate during daylight hours when they were active and hunting or gathering. Nighttime was reserved for rest and recovery, not for processing food. So your body evolved to expect food during the day and fasting at night. When melatonin rises, it sends a clear signal to your entire system that says, slow down, stop expecting food shift into repair mode. The problem arises when you eat during this melatonin window. Research published in the Journal of Pineal Research in 2024 found that eating when melatonin is high specifically reduces insulin sensitivity in visceral adipose tissue. That is the deep belly fat around your organs, the kind most strongly linked to metabolic disease. When food arrives while melatonin is already elevated, your body struggles. Glucose clears from your bloodstream more slowly. It lingers longer than it should. This creates a low level of inflammation, and the excess energy that cannot be processed efficiently gets routed to the easiest storage location, which is your belly. But when you stop eating early enough, something different happens. By the time melatonin starts rising around 9 p.m., your insulin has already dropped to baseline. There is no conflict, no confusion. Your body receives a clear, unified signal that it is time to rest and repair. This hormonal alignment is the foundation for everything that happens next. As midnight approaches, you have now been without food for several hours. Insulin has settled to its lowest point. And for the first time since dinner, your body has full permission to access what it has been holding on to. This is the moment most people never reach. Not because they cannot, but because that late night snack or that handful of nuts at 10 p.m. quietly delays everything by hours. Sometimes the delay stretches past the entire sleep window. When insulin finally drops low enough, your liver shifts gears. It begins converting stored fat into molecules called ketones. These ketones become an alternative fuel source that can power your brain, your heart, and your lungs throughout the night. And here is something fascinating. Your body does not just grab fat from random places. It shows a clear preference for visceral fat, first the fat packed around your internal organs. Why? Because of simple biology and anatomy. Visceral fat sits right next to your liver. It connects directly to the liver through something called the portal vein. This makes it the most convenient and efficient fuel source when your body needs energy during a fast. Think of it like a gas station built right next to the highway. When your body needs fuel quickly, it goes to the closest and most accessible source first. This is actually encouraging news for anyone frustrated with belly fat. Your body is not ignoring your midsection. It is actually prioritizing it, but only when the conditions are right. Between roughly 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., your body enters peak fat burning mode. Fat oxidation reaches its highest efficiency during these hours. Ketones are flowing steadily, providing clean fuel for your vital organs while you sleep. At the same time, something else remarkable happens. Human growth hormone, often called HGH, surges to levels 200 to 400% higher than normal. This hormone spikes primarily during deep sleep, and it serves a crucial protective function. HGH tells your body what to preserve and what to burn. When insulin is low and HGH is high, your body receives a clear instruction. Protect the muscle tissue. Protect the vital structures. Use stored fat for fuel instead. This is why people who consistently stop eating early often notice changes around their midsection before anywhere else. And it is why they do not lose muscle in the process. The hormonal conditions actively protect lean tissue while directing energy use toward fat. Now let me share some specific research that puts real numbers to this. A study published in PLOS Biology in 2020 placed subjects in metabolic chambers to precisely measure what they burned overnight. One group ate a late evening snack. The other group stopped eating after an earlier dinner. Both groups consumed the exact same total calories for the day. The results were striking. The people who ate late burned an average of 15 fewer grams of fat overnight compared to those who stopped eating earlier. Now, 15 grams might not sound like much for a single night, but consider what happens over time. 15 grams multiplied by 365 nights equals about 5.5 kilograms per year. That is roughly 12 pounds of fat that either gets burned or accumulated based solely on when you stopped eating, not on how much you ate. Same calories, dramatically different outcomes. The only variable was timing. By the time morning arrives, your body is in a very different state than it would be after a night of late eating. You have completed 12 or more hours without food. Your fat stores have been providing energy all night. And something interesting happens with your hunger. You might expect to wake up starving, but many people notice the opposite. Morning hunger feels stable and manageable. There is no frantic urgency to eat immediately, no shaky feeling demanding food right now. This happens because your hunger hormones respond to rhythm, not chaos. When your body learns that food reliably stops at night and resumes in the morning, a hormone called ghrelin stabilizes. Your system trusts that energy is available because it has been using stored fat all night. There is no need for an emergency hunger signal. At the same time, your insulin sensitivity reaches its peak first thing in the morning. After hours of low insulin overnight, your cells are receptive again. When you do eat breakfast, glucose is handled smoothly and efficiently. No dramatic spikes, no energy crashes an hour later. The morning becomes a reflection of the night before. When the night is respected, when you give your body that quiet window to do its work, morning feels like a reward. Calm, clear, and self-directed, rather than frantic and craving driven. Now I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds great for people with normal schedules. But what about those of us who work nights or have unusual hours? Let me address that directly, because this is where most advice falls short. If you work night shifts, the principle stays exactly the same, but you apply it to your sleep window, not to the clock on the wall. Your body does not know what time zone you are in or what shift you work. It only knows when you sleep and when you are awake. Here is how it works for a fixed night shift. Let us say you work from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. You probably sleep from around 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. In that case, your last meal should finish around 4 a.m., which gives you that 3 to 4 hour buffer before your 8 a.m. sleep time. Your eating window runs from when you wake at 4 p.m. until 4 a.m. For those of you who rotate between day and night shifts, the key is maintaining what researchers call an anchor sleep. This means keeping at least 4 to 5 hours of your sleep time consistent between workdays and days off, even if the total schedule shifts. Adjust your eating window to match your sleep and prioritize consistency over perfection. Your body clock follows your sleep patterns, not the actual time of day. Once you understand this shift, work stops being an obstacle to these principles. Now let me address another common situation. Many of you exercise in the evening after work. You hit the gym at 7 or 8 p.m., get home around 9 p.m., and feel like you need to eat something to recover. How do you handle this? You have three good options. Option 1 is to move your main dinner earlier in the day. Eat your substantial meal around 5 or 6 p.m. before your workout. Then after the gym, have only a light protein-focused snack like a small shake or some Greek yogurt. This gives you recovery nutrition without a heavy meal right before bed. Option 2 is to flip the structure. Have a small pre-workout snack with some protein and minimal carbohydrates before you train. Then eat your main dinner earlier on those gym days, finishing by 6 or 7 p.m. You train in a slightly fasted state, but still get your full nutrition earlier. Option 3 is for those nights when you truly cannot avoid eating late. If you must eat after 9 p.m., prioritize foods that are light, easy to digest, and low in sugar. Grilled chicken with vegetables works much better than pasta or rice. You will not get the full fat burning benefit that night, but you minimize the disruption. The key is understanding the trade-offs and choosing what works for your specific situation rather than giving up entirely because the timing is not perfect. There is another issue I want to address. Some people have heard that they need a bedtime snack to prevent waking up at 3 a.m. from a cortisol spike. This comes up frequently, so let me clarify. If you sleep through the night without issues, you do not need a bedtime snack. Your body is handling the overnight fast just fine. But if you frequently wake up around 3 a.m. with a racing heart, feeling shaky or intensely hungry, that is worth paying attention to. However, adding a snack is usually not the best first solution. Instead, try adjusting your dinner. Make it higher in protein and healthy fats. Reduce the sugar and refined carbohydrates. Cut caffeine after noon. Make sure you are getting adequate electrolytes throughout the day. These adjustments solve the underlying issue for most people. A bedtime snack should be a last resort if nothing else works, not a default habit. Now I want to be very direct about something important. Timing is a powerful tool, but it does not replace calories. You can stop eating at 6 p.m. every single day, but if you are consistently consuming more energy than your body uses, you will still gain fat. What timing does is create favorable hormonal conditions. It reduces late-night snacking, which is when most people consume their lowest quality calories. It improves sleep, which helps regulate appetite hormones the next day. It creates an overnight fat-burning window that would not exist otherwise. When these factors combine, most people naturally create a caloric deficit without feeling deprived. That is the real magic. You are not forcing restriction. You are working with your biology so that eating less happens naturally. Think of timing as a tool that makes the overall equation easier, not as a replacement for the equation itself. If you have tried stopping eating early but have not seen results, there are a few things worth checking. First, are you drinking calories in the evening? Milk in your tea, a glass of wine juice or sweetened beverages, all trigger insulin responses. Only water, plain tea, and black coffee are truly neutral. Second, are you having healthy snacks after your cutoff time? A handful of almonds or some yogurt might be nutritious, but they still raise insulin. Healthy does not mean metabolically invisible. Third, are you actually sleeping enough? Sleep deprivation raises cortisol, which counteracts fat burning. The eating timing only works fully when combined with adequate rest, typically 7 to 8 hours. Fourth, are you under chronic stress? High ongoing stress keeps cortisol elevated, which promotes fat storage regardless of meal timing. You may need to address stress directly, not just adjust when you eat. And fifth, have you given it enough time? Your body needs 2 to 4 weeks to adapt to new patterns. If you tried this for 5 days and quit, you never gave your system a chance to adjust. Before we wrap up, a quick note on safety. If you experience headaches or fatigue when shifting your eating window earlier, try increasing water intake and making sure you get adequate electrolytes during the day. Also ensure you are eating enough during your earlier eating window. Make changes gradually. Shift your dinner 30 minutes earlier every few days rather than making a dramatic overnight change. Your body adapts better to gradual transitions. This approach is not appropriate for everyone in the same way. If you are pregnant or breastfeeding, if you have a history of eating disorders, or if you have medical conditions that require specific meal timing, please work with your healthcare provider to determine what is right for you. Challenging is fine, dangerous is not. Listen to your body and adjust accordingly. So what should you take away from everything we have covered? Your belly fat is not stubborn because you lack discipline. It follows biological rules that most people do not understand. When you eat too close to bedtime, you interrupt the hormonal cascade that allows overnight fat burning to happen. The solution is not another diet or more willpower. It is alignment with your body's natural rhythm. Stop eating 3 to 4 hours before sleep. Let insulin drop while melatonin rises. Give your body the quiet window it needs to shift into fat-burning mode. This works whether you sleep at 10 p.m. or 2 a.m. It works whether you have a normal schedule or work night shifts. It works whether you exercise in the morning or evening. The principle adapts to your life. You are not fighting your body. You are learning to work with its rhythm. And once you are aligned overnight, fat burning stops being something you struggle for and starts becoming something that happens automatically while you sleep. I want to hear from you in the comments. What is your situation? Do you finish work late? Do you work night shifts? Do you go to the gym after work? Tell me your schedule and your sleep time. I will pin the most common scenarios so everyone can find a template that matches their life. If this helped you understand your body a little better, hit the subscribe button. We break down complex biology into something you can actually use. No medical jargon, no empty promises, just science that makes sense. I wonder what your belly fat will look like in 30 days. Come back and tell me. See you. If you search for fasting on the internet, you will find a lot of information. Burn fat, detox your body, boost your energy, improve your health. But when you ask the question, what exactly is happening inside my body? The answers are usually vague. That is because most fasting studies in the past only looked at a few basic markers: calories consumed, blood sugar levels, ketones in the blood, maybe cholesterol. These numbers are useful, but they are like looking at the temperature of water and trying to guess what is cooking inside the pot. But in March 2024, a research team from Queen Mary University of London and the Norwegian School of Sports Sciences published a completely different kind of study in Nature Metabolism, one of the most respected scientific journals in the world. They did not just measure a few markers. They tracked nearly 3,000 different proteins in the blood of 12 volunteers every single day throughout 7 days of eating nothing, and continued tracking when they started eating again. Why does this matter? Because proteins are the real workers inside your body. They tell you exactly what your liver is doing, how your immune system is responding, whether your muscles are breaking down, whether your connective tissue is being repaired. This is not guessing. This is real data detailed down to each type of protein, and what they discovered changes how we understand fasting. It provides answers to questions that people have been asking for years. Questions like, when does the body really start healing itself? Does fasting destroy muscle? And what happens after you start eating again? In this video, I will walk you through that study. I will explain exactly what happens at 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, and beyond. Why day 3 is a critical threshold. And most importantly, why the way you eat after fasting may determine how much of the benefits you actually keep. Before we begin, a quick note: this is educational content, not medical advice. If you have any health conditions, please talk to your doctor before trying prolonged fasting. Now, let me explain why I call this the most precise study on prolonged fasting ever conducted. Most previous fasting research measured things that are easy to measure: body weight, blood sugar, insulin, ketones, sometimes cholesterol. These numbers tell you what kind of fuel your body is using, but they do not tell you exactly what is happening at the cellular level. The Nature Metabolism 2024 study did something different. They used a technology called proteomics, which allows them to measure nearly 3,000 different proteins in the blood at the same time. What are proteins? Simply put, proteins are the tools that your cells create to do everything: digest food, repair tissue, fight infection, build muscle. When you measure proteins, you are looking directly at what the body is actually doing, not guessing. They took blood samples every day throughout 7 days of fasting and continued monitoring when the volunteers started eating again. The result: they found over 1,000 proteins that changed significantly, and more importantly, they saw exactly when those changes happened. This is the first time we have such a detailed map of what prolonged fasting does to the human body. Before this study, we were essentially flying blind, relying on general markers and subjective reports. Now we have a real blueprint. So let us start with the first 24 hours and follow this blueprint step by step. In the study, researchers observed that during the first 24 hours, proteins related to carbohydrate metabolism began to decrease while proteins related to fat metabolism increased. This is the sign that the body is switching from burning sugar to burning fat. Here is what is happening in simple terms. When you stop eating, your body first uses up the sugar stored in your liver called glycogen. This usually takes about 12 to 18 hours. Once that runs out, insulin drops, which allows fat to be released from your fat cells more easily. Your liver starts producing ketones, an alternative fuel made from fat. And your brain releases more norepinephrine, a chemical that helps you stay alert and focused. What will you feel during this time? Hunger usually peaks around hour 18 to 24. This is often the hardest part of the entire fast. You might feel irritable, a bit lightheaded, or have trouble focusing on your work. But some people actually feel more alert than usual, and that is because of the norepinephrine. Your body is giving you extra focus to help you find food, a survival mechanism from thousands of years ago. The interesting thing is that the study showed the changes at this stage are still relatively mild. Proteins are shifting but not dramatically. The body is testing the waters. It does not know yet whether this is a short skip or a real food shortage. If you feel slightly dizzy, drink water and add a little salt. If symptoms persist for more than 30 minutes, it is okay to eat something light. Do not push through severe discomfort. Now let us move to hours 24 to 48. The protein data from the study showed an important change during this window. A protein called FGF21, which signals energy shortage, increased significantly. At the same time, leptin, the hormone that controls hunger, dropped considerably. Here is what is happening. Ketones become the main fuel source for your brain. The brain actually works well on ketones, sometimes even better than on sugar. This is why our ancestors could still hunt and think clearly when they had not eaten for days. Your brain does not shut down without food. It adapts. FGF21 rising tells the body we are in a food shortage, switch to conservation mode. The result is that your body burns fat more aggressively while also starting to protect your muscles. Leptin dropping sounds bad, but it is actually beneficial. It means your hunger signals also decrease. And here is something fascinating the study found when leptin drops. Leptin receptors become more sensitive. This is significant for people who struggle with leptin resistance, where they eat a lot but never feel full. Fasting may help reset the system. If that sounds like you, this is worth paying attention to. What will you feel? Hunger surprisingly decreases. Many people feel less hungry at hour 30 than at hour 20. It seems counterintuitive, but the biology explains it. Your mind starts to clear as your brain gets used to ketones. You might have a mild headache, but this is usually from dehydration or lack of electrolytes, not from fasting itself. Drink water with some salt, and it usually resolves within 20 to 30 minutes. If it does not, that is your body telling you to stop. Now we arrive at the most important part, hours 48 to 72. This is the key finding of the study. After 48 hours, especially as you enter day 3, the researchers observed what they called a whole body response. Over 1,000 different proteins changed simultaneously. Not gradually, but like a threshold was crossed, like a switch was flipped. Here is what is happening at this stage. The body realizes this is not just a skipped meal. This is a real food shortage, a process called autophagy gets activated strongly. What is autophagy? Simply put it, means your cells clean up damaged parts inside themselves and recycle them into energy and raw materials. Think of it as your cells doing a deep cleaning, throwing out the broken furniture and using the parts to build something new. This process was so important that the scientist who discovered it, Yoshinori Ohsumi, won the Nobel Prize in 2016. The immune system begins to reorganize, not getting stronger or weaker, but restructuring itself to work more efficiently. It becomes better at identifying threats while producing less unnecessary inflammation. Proteins related to connective tissue, the collagen that makes up your tendons, ligaments, gut lining, and skin start to change significantly. The study found that proteins related to what scientists call the extracellular matrix, think of it as the scaffolding that holds your body together, changed dramatically after day 3. This may explain why many people report that their joints, tendons, and ligaments feel better after extended fasting. The research now shows why. What will you feel? Energy increases noticeably. Many people describe it like a switch being flipped. Mental clarity becomes very sharp. Colors seem brighter. Thoughts come easier. But some people have trouble sleeping. Why does sleep get disrupted? Norepinephrine and cortisol stay elevated. This is a survival mechanism. When food was scarce, our ancestors needed to stay alert to hunt, not sleep more. In the modern world, this can make it harder to fall asleep. Here are some tips if you experience sleep difficulties. Do not drink coffee afternoon. Add electrolytes in the afternoon, including salt, potassium, and magnesium. Exercise in the morning, not in the evening. Keep your bedroom dark and cool. Accept that your sleep might be shorter, but still restorative. Many people report needing less sleep during fasting and still feeling refreshed. There is another important finding I want to share. A companion study published in January 2025 in Nature Communications tested the muscle strength of 13 people after 7 days of fasting. The result, maximum muscle strength did not decrease, not at all. This directly contradicts the common fear that fasting destroys muscle. It does not. Your body is smarter than that. This confirms the protein data from the main study. The body truly protects muscle during fasting. From day 3 to day 7, the study showed that the changes continued but did not increase dramatically. In other words, the most important threshold had already been crossed by day 3. The days after that are about maintaining and deepening the changes that already started. Autophagy continues. Proteins related to wound healing increase. A brain-specific protein called tenasinar changes significantly, suggesting the brain is also restructuring. The immune system completes its reorganization. What will you feel? Many people describe a sense of peace, clarity, even euphoria. Senses become sharper. Energy stays stable throughout the day without the usual ups and downs. Here is an important insight from the study. Benefits do not increase linearly. You do not get double the benefits at 6 days compared to 3 days. Most of the important changes have already happened by day 3. This is useful information when you decide how long to fast. From day 4 onward, if you do not have medical supervision, you should consider ending the fast. The additional benefits are not much greater, but the risks can increase. Now, Let me address two common questions. First, coffee during fasting. I will answer this directly. Black coffee does not break your fast. It has no significant calories and does not trigger insulin. Coffee can help reduce hunger and increase alertness. But if you drink it after noon, it can make sleep worse. And as we discussed, sleep is already more difficult during fasting. Some people also feel anxious or jittery when drinking coffee on an empty stomach. My advice: you can drink it in the morning. Drink extra water to compensate. And if you feel anxious or cannot sleep, skip coffee during your fasting days. Second, exercise during fasting. The Nature Communication study showed that maximum muscle strength did not decrease after 7 days of fasting, but endurance decreased by about 13% because the body limits carbohydrate burning. So, what should you do? On day one, you can exercise normally, but reduce intensity by 20 to 30% if this is your first time. On days 2 and 3, switch to light activity like walking yoga or light cardio. Avoid heavy weight training. Exercise in the morning to avoid affecting your sleep. You are not getting weaker. Your body is in energy-saving mode, prioritizing internal repair over external performance. Now we come to what may be the most important part of this video and the part most people overlook. The study tracked the volunteers for 7 days after they started eating again. And the protein data showed something crucial. How you eat in the first 3 days after fasting determines how much of the positive changes you keep. Those who ate whole, simple foods in the first 3 days, quality protein vegetables, good fats maintained the positive protein changes. Those who ate a lot of sugar, refined starches, and processed foods, their proteins almost reset back to pre-fasting levels. All that effort potentially undone by 3 days of poor eating. This is perhaps the most practical takeaway from the entire study. The fast is only half the journey. How you end it matters just as much as how you do it. There is also good news. The study recorded after 3 days of eating again, weight was still lower than before fasting, but the weight lost was fat. Lean mass. Your muscle had almost completely recovered. Your body knows what to keep and what to let go. So what should you eat in the first 3 days? Your very first meal should be very light. Bone broth, vegetable soup, a boiled egg, or a small amount of fish. Keep the portion small. Your digestive system has been resting and needs time to wake up. On day 1 after fasting, eat easily digestible protein like fish eggs or chicken cooked vegetables and some good fats like olive oil or avocado. On days 2 and 3, gradually increase your food intake, adding more protein and green vegetables. From day 4 onward, you can return to your normal diet, assuming your normal diet is reasonably healthy. What should you avoid? Sugar and sweets, absolutely none in the first 3 days. Refined starches like white bread pasta and large amounts of white rice. Fried foods and processed oils. Meals that are too large because your digestive system needs time to wake up. For healthy people, fasting for 72 hours will refeeding syndrome, a dangerous condition from eating too quickly, is very rare. But if you fast for more than 5 days or have health conditions, this needs medical supervision. Not everyone can fast for 72 hours, and not everyone needs to. The study showed that many positive changes begin earlier. At 24 hours, the body has already switched to fat burning and autophagy begins at a light level. At 36 hours, leptin drops significantly and leptin receptors become more sensitive. At 48 hours, autophagy increases considerably and ketones are high. 72 hours is the threshold for the comprehensive whole body response, but fasting for 24 to 36 hours occasionally still provides real value. For those who need to take medication with food or have difficult schedules, fasting for 20 hours daily is still a powerful tool. How often should you do extended fasting? The study does not give an exact number, but based on what we know, 72-hour fasts do not need to be frequent. 1 to 4 times per year is enough for most people. 24 to 36-hour fasts can be done 1 to 2 times per month. Daily intermittent fasting of 16 to 20 hours can be maintained long-term if it works for you. Fasting is a tool, not a religion. If your body responds well, continue. If you feel consistently bad, stop and reassess. Listen to your body. It has been adapting to periods of feast and famine for thousands of generations. It knows what it is doing. So what does the Nature Metabolism 2024 study tell us? For the first time, we have detailed evidence at the protein level of what happens when humans stop eating. Not guessing, not subjective feelings, but data from nearly 3,000 proteins measured every day. And that data shows the human body has an extraordinary system of repair and regeneration, a system that evolved over millions of years. But it only gets fully activated when we stop feeding it constantly, and the critical threshold is around 72 hours. Let me summarize the most important findings from the study. First, the biggest changes happen after 48 to 72 hours. This is the whole body response threshold. Second, over 1,000 proteins change, including proteins related to immunity, connective tissue, and the brain. Third, muscle is protected. Strength does not decrease after 7 days. Fourth, the 3 days after you start eating again determine how much of the benefits you keep. Fifth, benefits begin from 24 hours. You do not necessarily need to fast for 72 hours to gain something. Perhaps the most thought-provoking thing about this study is not what happens when you stop eating. It is realizing that your body still remembers how to heal itself. It is just waiting for you to give